I'm Linda Robertson, a member of the Northwind Reading Series team. I work with Sheila Bender and Holly Hughes to bring poetry to the Port Townsend community and beyond with the support of Centrum. For over a year, we've brought you recorded readings by many wonderful poets, and we look forward to gathering again at the Northwind Gallery on Water Street when it is safe to do so. We are happy to share this Tidepools 2021 virtual reading with you. Tidepools is a literary and arts publication from Peninsula College. Due to the pandemic, the Tidepools class at the college was on hiatus, so Deirdre Frank and several Peninsula College staff and faculty, as well as community members, worked to publish this vibrant magazine full of local talented creators. It includes art, music, and poetry by 56 Olympic Peninsula residents. This video features 10 poetry contributors as well as others discussing their creative inspiration.
My name is Sophia Mahan Bonamici.
My name is Kristen Mabry.
My name is Laura Schaefer.
Hi, my name is Dr. Jan Adams.
My name is Eva McGinnis.
I'm Wesley Farrow.
And I'm Christian Valentine.
Hello.
I'm Judy Duncan.
Mike Pace.
I'm Terry Smith.
Hi, my name is Nancy Fowler.
My name is Katie Cobb.
My name is Connie Kenyon.
I'm Veronica Schaefermeyer.
My name's Tabitha Pindell.
My name is Tom Harris.
I am Ewan.
My name is Nan Toby-Churell.
My name is Anouk Atwater.
Hello, I am Amy McIntyre. I've always been a really creative person, but over the last year and even year and a half, the world's been a little crazy. And I think that more so now than any other time, it's important to be creative, and it's super important to keep on pushing yourself to do the things that make you happy, more than doing things that the rest of the world thinks you should be doing. As artists, I think it's important to help brighten up somebody's day, even if it's just one smile a day. It's better than none.
I've learned that even if you start out doing different things, or not thinking that your art might not be as good as other people's, that as you get older and you can learn more things about it, and then with more experience you can get better at it.
It's a hard thing to identify the strength in yourself, and when you find a piece that captures it, it's really powerful. Now over a year later, since everything has been finalized, I've actually looked at that and been like, can I recreate this? And I'm in such a happier, kinder, wonderful place that I can't channel that same intensity. And it's interesting because it's one of those times where you come across beauty and strength in such a dark place, and you can't recreate that emotion and that intensity. And I felt like that piece, it was based on a photograph, but it really highlighted that because the depth of the piece, it was as dark in contrast in the photograph as it was in the painting, and the light, the way the light plays.
I would say any of my writing might have taken a darker bent because that's the pit of what I'm feeling these days, is just what's going on in my life, what do I want to, what's my next steps in life, what do I want to start doing? Do I want to dedicate more time to writing? Do I want to do more painting? Do I want to work less? Do I want to go back to school?
The song Jenna, first of all, was written on a guitar with only 3 strings, and I couldn't play the guitar, and I looked at that 3-string guitar and I was like, if I can write on a song on a guitar, it's gonna be this guitar, this derpy little 3-string guitar. And then I pulled it out, and pieces of my life just started coming at me, like different snippets of my imagination and my memories. And so I started writing those down, and eventually they became lyrics. And so the first phrase kind of inspired the rest of the piece, and it's roses, gather the roses, then burn the mansion, we don't like it. So this was from way in my past. I grew up and still live in a cul-de-sac kind of neighborhood that bordered this gigantic, expansive field full of daisies, and at the very end of the field, there's this ginormous house. And it's so out of place because everywhere else is just regular, suburban houses, little houses, like 1 or 2 stories. And then there's that mansion. And ever since I was a little girl, probably ever since I was born, they've been working on it. They've been constructing new bits and pieces of this gigantic house that keeps on getting bigger in this little tiny neighborhood. I have no idea why it's there, and they still haven't finished it. And so as a kid, I was just looking at this gigantic thing and wonder like, oh my God, it's a mansion. It's not, but I thought it was. And so the phrase, then burn the mansion, we don't like it, was basically just little me, like recollecting, I don't really like this thing. It's super out of place in my little tiny neighborhood. What if I burned it? I would never actually do that, but that's kind of how the song started flowing.
I'm not a very technical person, so I kind of rely on my creativity, and creativity is really nice because you can make a lot of different things that are original and stuff.
What inspired us was that we were in our local music shop, and the owner there, John, at Peninsula Music, he showed us a poster of a Tidepool magazine contest, and I went to the website and looked further, and we just so happened to be working on an album at that time and noticed that we could submit our music to be considered.
We were listening to a lot of Chet Baker at the time, famous jazz pianist, vocalist, trumpet player, and he's like the king of the genre love songs and romance, and our album was featuring love songs, and so we figured that someday would be a crowning jewel to submit to the contest for.
In the late 90s, I was pretty consumed by drug addiction and finally got free of it. And then my whole life turned around, which is a common story. And then some 20, 30 years later, then I wrote the song kind of with that in mind.
We listened to what we had, and this song we really liked because it had energy, and when we recorded it, it was only a second take, so we felt really good about it. The whole thing's live.
I love Tidepools. I think having a literary and artistic journal here in Port Angeles from Peninsula College is such an amazing thing, and I cannot wait to see my photo in print. It feels really cool to be selected as a contributor. It actually, as an artist, makes me feel like I'm actually making it somewhere a little bit, and that's kind of a fun, enjoyable experience.
And I love Tidepools. I love the fact that it's local. There's so much talent on the Olympic Peninsula.
I was inspired to submit something to Tidepools because it's something I've actually been wanting to do for years. And I've always just held myself back from the fear of, people are gonna be looking at what I've created, and what if nobody likes it, and what if I'm rejected? And it's probably everything anyone creative ever does when they're doing something. But this whole last year has just been chaos, and I'm about to hit 40 and said, I'm gonna do it, it's time. And so I braved it, and my son and my husband were cheering me on, and I finished editing what I was doing and submitted, and it was perfect.
Double helix, sculpting embryos, shrimp-like in amniotic brine. Whorls within sunflowers, fiddlehead ferns, chameleon's tail. Cyclone vortex, fossil ammonites, chambered nautilus. Umbilical arc at moment of birth between mother and child. Eddies and spirals of fingerprints and cochlea inside ears. Folds in human brain. Hippocampus seahorse. Consciousness evolving. Spiral universe unfolding in the Milky Way of all cells.
Is my poem Sugar Rush. Make it sweet or make it sour, oh so ready to devour. Colored sugar packed in tubes or just plain as sugar cubes. Sometimes eat a lollipop, buy it in the candy shop. Make it big and make it pink. One it is a candy drink. And when you're eating giant candy, pace yourself, my little dandy, for chew too slow or chew too fast will affect the bubble blast. So munch until your mouth is sore, then speed on back to the store. Just unsort, it's not broke. All you need's another Coke. Off to bed now, in a rush. Forget your teeth, no needs to brush.
Homeless. He's been here all day on the beach. He moved here during the night, unpacking the cart he calls home. Bags of stuff laid out on the picnic table for the day, just for the day. Just a day spent staring at the waves, feeding the gulls, and shouting. People walk by, not getting too close. His voice is loud, never talking, only shouting. Probably people are afraid. So most people stare and stay back. But I have watched him all day, staring at the waves and throwing chips to the seagulls. He's a regular, if a homeless person can be a regular. Some know him, they pass by, and they give him the high sign or a wave, and he's shouting. His bags spill forth plastic bottles, practical warm clothes, chips, and a stuffed dog. Let's have dinner. Open a bag of chips, always sharing with the seagulls. And if you venture too close, he will share with you graciously. He gives what he has, but then he starts shouting. As the sun sets, it gets cold, and he has layers and layers to pile on. Time to pack up the cart with the plastic bags, the bags of clothes, and the stuffed dog. He can stay a while before the beach patrol comes and ushers him off the beach. But he'll be back tomorrow, maybe farther down the beach, staring at the waves and shouting.
And afterward to my mother. I missed you long before you died. How much I did not realize. We both held our feelings deep inside, a long-established habit. And now to say I love you would be the greatest joy. That last morning before I left for the airport, after a visit heavy with restraint, you came into the bedroom, me still under the covers, and you took my hand in yours. In silence, you brushed the hair from my forehead as you had when as a child I lay for months in bed with rheumatic fever. It was the first of our last goodbyes. You knew then what the future held. Through our eyes and mingled pulses, we shared that truth. 2 months later, I embraced your hand in the hospital, you tied to tubes, and beeping, ever beeping monitors. I made them stop.
I am 8 years old. My father drives the olds to the Bronx. My body itches with scratchy woolen dress, rubbing my legs. This Sunday, we must visit great-grandmother Bubba. We climb 3 flights of stairs. She waits at the landing, short, shrunken, dressed in a long, deep blue skirt. She wears a cornelian brooch on her bodice, her hair braided around her head. I hear strange sounds in Yiddish. Her eyes seem to slice through me. I feel as if I'm in a foreign land. I slowly walk into another room, filled with dark, shiny mahogany bureaus, lace antimacassars on velvet armchairs. We spend the afternoon drinking tea. We eat apple strudel, dates, and apples. Suddenly, I want to find a treasure to take home, something small, delicate, a reminder of this air and these spaces. I sneak into the bedroom, search the drawers and dresser tops. I see one of her gold hairpins lying on an embroidered cloth. Next to the pin is a photograph of a woman and a man standing in the street. They squint at the camera from a cracked, ornate brass frame. At dusk, we leave. My father drives expertly through the darkened streets with strange names. I nap in the back seat, clutching the hairpin in one hand, My dreamy sleep carries me back to those rooms, their voices, and I see Bubba's wrinkled face staring at me, slightly smiling. Thank you.
On one of my medical visits to Haiti, he waited in the endless line for a chance to plead with me. Under the sizzling Haitian sun, all the folks in line giggled and smiled as my actor husband clowned and teased, playing to help the clock speed along in the relentless heat. Finally, Samuel's turn. I have a terrible headache all the time. Nothing helps. Please make it go away. He is a beautiful young man, 32, tall and muscular, and flashing a wide, white teeth smile. But after my exam is complete, I know he has a brain tumor. I know where in his brain it resides, but have no way to determine if it is benign or malignant. I am working in a dirt floor shed. I have no advanced diagnostic equipment or even electricity. To get real help, he must travel down from the mountains to Port-au-Prince. Even as I explain this, I know he cannot go. He has no transportation, no money, no relatives in the capital. Most Haitians will not have access to complicated medical care and often seem resigned to whatever fate has in store. I give him my entire remaining supply of pain medicines. It is the last day of this trip, and I must leave. I return 6 months later. My husband remembers him and ushers him in. Now, Samuel is completely blind, still with crushing headache, still with wide smile. My heart hurts for him. In nearby countries, he had a good chance of cure, but not here. I ask him if, besides pain medicine, there is anything else he needs. His quick reply, I need a pair of sneakers. I note his useless, flapping sole shoes, causing him to stumble in his blindness. My kind husband immediately removes his own shoes and slips them on Samuel. I knew there was a reason I married this man.
Last night, a woman lied down on tracks. Her body became flint steel. The train screeched until it finally stopped. It was a beautiful day. A festival had been set. For the rest of the evening, the ferry refused to transport onlookers to their box cars, their sleeping houses in every color. Gaps between islands widened. Low groaning engines reached the galaxy.
Hollyhocks, snakes, and chickens. The garter snakes multiply this spring with green-brown stripes, darting tongues. They swallow worms, blind mice, fallen baby robins, and chicken eggs. My 4 speckled Sussex hens revolt. The largest commands by clucks and squawks, death to all garter snakes. Swallow each head first, she orders, and they do. In a frenzied snake hunt, they trample all hollyhocks to the ground, the ones I planted that hide them from the chicken hawks. Thank you.
A handheld pencil sharpener tipped on its side, devoid of shavings. The Sklallam language calendar hangs frozen at September. A nearly complete rocket project, parachute dangling, stands unlaunched. Brown and blue molded plastic chairs, some worn smooth, others cracked from use, politely wait empty. Books, paper, tape, clipboards, scissors, all wait. The tables scarred from use as workbenches, a saw kerf here, a drill hole, Sharpie lines, a stubborn blotch of hot glue, and one corner broken off decades ago when a couple of students dropped it. Stand at attention. During the morning meeting, I prompt the class to remember to breathe. Their faces blink back at me from the computer screen. The cooling fan on my 9-year-old laptop whirs to life in reply. And then the second one is holding space. What if, when I swing open the door, step into space, everyone was there? The air filled with laughter or shouts and marimba music through the wall, joyous noise and motion, as if some part of all those lives over all those years lived here still. I swing open the door, disturb the still air. A ruffle, the slightest breeze, stirs past like a sigh, a spirit slipping out as I enter.
Alex had seen many of his fellow soldiers die in his 4+ years as a prisoner of war. Only a month after he was drafted into the Polish army on the eve of Hitler's invasion, he was with the retreating troops when he was captured by the Russians after a bloody ambush where he was wounded. He and other survivors were traded to the Germans. It did not matter who the captors were. Cruelty reigned and kindnesses were rare. Survival depended on small acts of resistance, thefts along the way, like an extra potato hidden in a pocket when forced to pick the harvest, punishable by death if caught, or a piece of clothing of a fellow prisoner who had died during the night. Alex was good at surviving. He had done it from his poverty-stricken youth, even as his body was dwarfed by malnutrition. He was a strong fighter. In prison, he watched his young body shrivel, his feet bleed, his hair and teeth fall out, and lice bedevil him. Hunger and exhaustion were constant gnawing tyrants as the prisoners were forced into hard labor with meager and often rotten rations. At night, they were warehoused in barracks behind electrified fences. He watched in horror, then numbness, as desperate prisoners would succumb to the spell and throw themselves onto the fences, setting off the sirens. The guards didn't appreciate the extra trouble of taking them down and commanded other prisoners to dispose of the burnt bodies. He grew to hate the smell of incinerated flesh. Alex prayed to live through each day, making bargains with whatever unseen powers he'd hoped could alter his fate. God or the devil, it didn't seem to make any difference anymore. But on a brutally cold winter day, after particularly vicious gun barrel pounding by a guard, and no food for several days, he was at his desperate end and began to see the lure of the quick death on the fence. The look he had seen in the eyes of other suicides was now in his, and he had no strength left to fight. He'd deal with God or the devil once this hell was over. It couldn't possibly get worse than this. He began the walk, or rather the shamble towards it. But a hand on his arm stopped him. His friend, as gaunt as Alex himself, whispered, "I have something for you." He pulled Alex back from the searchlight, reaching into a pocket of his tattered coat, and gave him a raw potato, his own last piece of food, shriveled and dirty. Alex didn't understand at first, but took it furtively and ate it with a raw reverence that fed him a sliver of hope and strength that broke the spell of a quick death. Note: Alex was my father, and he and his friends survived until the Allied liberation a year later. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt Sagan at Cascadia Films, for producing this wonderful reading. Thank you, too, to Deirdre Frank for all your efforts in continuing the Tidepools magazine tradition. This is its 57th publication. The Northwind reading series will continue in July in partnership with Centrum to bring you poets from the 2021 Port Townsend Writers Conference. This will again be a virtual reading. You can view any of our previous video readings on our YouTube channel, Northwind Art Reading Series, and we also post the readings on our Facebook page, Northwind Reading Series. Be well. See you in July.